In this video, we're going to talk about Redbreast Dream Cask. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know there are two things that I'm really passionate about. The first is obviously the way that whiskey tastes, but the second, and almost equally importantly, is the story behind it. And I don't mean just a marketing story. What I mean is genuinely what goes into making whiskey. Because when you're talking about a product that takes 20 years to make, there's often a really special story behind it. And that's one of the things that gets me excited about whiskey. So in this video, we're going to do something a little bit different. What I have here is a story. And I'm going to tell you the story of this Redbreast Dream Cask. So hopefully you're sitting comfortably. This might take a while. I'm just kidding. It's a whiskey and we're going to drink it. Redbreast Dream Cask is made up of 4 different whiskeys. Cask number 1 is a single pot still Irish whiskey distilled in 1998. It was matured in an ex-Bourbon cask and then was recast in 2012 into a Pedro Ximénez cask. So you get that bourbon and the sherry together. Cask number 2 is a single pot still whiskey distilled in 1995, done in an ex-bourbon and then also recast into a sherry cask, but this time an oloroso sherry, and that was done also in 2012. So you get 2 old whiskeys that are ex-bourbon and then recast, rematured into 2 different types of sherry. So already we're looking at 2 unique whiskeys blended together. They've got 2 more casks to go to because, 2's hardly enough. One is a single pot still from 1985 that was matured in an ex-bourbon barrel, and the other one is a single pot still distilled in 1997, also done in an ex-bourbon barrel. This one a second fill ex-bourbon barrel. So all of that, when you put it together, creates an interesting vatted whiskey. And I say interesting because I actually think that is really interesting. Most of the times you're looking at a blended or a vatted whiskey that's maybe a mix of just bourbon and sherry. This is a really dynamic range of different whiskeys. So you've got your oloroso sherry, your Pedro Ximénez, and you've got a lot of bourbon cask coming through. So it should create a really interesting flavor. And these whiskeys that I mentioned, the youngest is 20 years old, the oldest is 33 years old. So we should be looking at a very well-matured, interesting whiskey. And what will be, going into it being a bit skeptical, is how Billy Leighton, who was behind making this whiskey, was able to take these 4 different whiskeys and put them together in something that I'm going to hope will be really well balanced. Because to me, that's one of the challenges that you can sometimes get with these great sounding whiskeys, is that each individually sounds incredible. Therefore, you think if you blend them together, you're going to get something that's greater than some of its parts. But sometimes you don't get that because balance in a whiskey is so important, and that's something that I think is really challenging. So let's give this a try and see if Billy Leighton has been able to pull it off. Our very nice glasses, which have been provided from the book. The color, I don't usually comment on the color. I'm going to have to assume that this is not artificially colored because it's a limited edition. They're only less than 1,000, 950, something like that, Ed?
924.
924 of these. I'm going to like to think that there's not any artificial coloring in it. It's a nice, typical kind of sherry whiskey, although it's probably lighter than some of the other sherried whiskeys I've seen. And the thing with color, is it doesn't actually mean a whole lot. So I can say that and it's relatively meaningless, which is why I don't usually comment on it. But, well, I felt like it. So let's move on to the nose. It's a really nice pronounced nose. nice kind of like really crawling out of the glass kind of orchard fruits, apples, apricots, really nice, inviting nose. I'm not even going to spend any more time talking about it because, frankly, I just want to drink it. So here we go. I'm really surprised about the sweetness of this. So I was expecting this to be your typical sort of sherry bomb, super dry whiskey, but actually it's more of an off dry, which is really surprising and complements this perfectly. I guess I shouldn't be so surprised. I say, oh, it's really surprising. I've just spent all this time talking about the fact there are 4 different casks of whiskey in here, 2 of which are non-sherry finishes. So maybe it isn't at all surprising that this isn't one of those kind of dry, sherried whiskeys. I think that is actually a scientific and professional tasting note, which is the international symbol of dry whiskey. The alcohol itself in this is incredibly well integrated. This is certainly a smooth whiskey, almost a soft whiskey. The alcohol is really well integrated, which is surprising. So we're looking at 52.2% ABV, so pretty strong. I mean, not like a super cask strength, knock your socks off ABV, but it's a considerable amount of alcohol. And to be able to take something and make it so light, so soft, surprising, well done, Billy. And we're not even gotten into the best bits. The body on this is really interesting. So it's more of a sort of light to medium body. And again, that's surprising when you think about something that is a sherry finished whiskey. You'd expect that Pedro Ximénez, that oloroso, to be adding a lot of body. And again, our very scientific tasting note of, which is what you expect. But you don't get that. You get kind of a light medium body, which is really nice, because this then leads to the best bit, is what does it actually taste like? And on the palate, that sherry really comes through. I think the difference between the orchard fruit that you had on the nose, these are more dried fruits like prunes, raisins, dried apricots, opposed to that luscious citrus fruit kind of apricot that you had on the nose. Citrus peel probably is a good way to describe what you get on the palate. Really well integrated, and like I said, my fear with this whiskey, when you've got 4 different old whiskeys coming together, is that it wouldn't be very well balanced. The balance is perfect. These whiskeys are really talking to each other in a great way. And I know it sounds really pretentious to say that, but I really like the way these whiskeys play off each other. It's like a good conversation with people that have complementary strengths. I think that the bourbon is bringing in sort of taking away some of that mouth-coating, full-bodiedness that can sometimes put off a sherry drinker, or put off a whiskey drinker who doesn't like sherry. But what the sherry then brings to this whiskey is a lot of intense, really sweet flavors, perfectly well-balanced, and the finish. The finish is absolutely exquisite. This is a really long, complex finish for what I do think is a fantastic, I'm not even going to say blended, but a vatted whiskey that's come together in a really interesting, compelling way to do what you want these kind of whiskeys to do, to be greater than the sum of their parts. Though this is a great whiskey, limited edition. You can only get this if you go on to the Birdhouse, which is the members area for Redbreast. I do recommend this. It is a bit pricey, 380 euros a bottle, so not necessarily an everyday whiskey, but for something that there's less than 1,000 bottles of, it is genuinely really nice. So if this is something that is within your price range, highly recommended for a special occasion. I always really struggle to recommend whiskeys that are that expensive because, yeah, you know, we are talking about a lot of money. But if you have a special occasion coming up or something that you're really looking forward to, this is definitely a whiskey to try. I really like the way this is constructed and put together. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this whiskey review, remember to subscribe to Top Whiskeys. We do whiskey videos every week. Thanks for watching.